So, hello everybody. Welcome to this episode of Sip and Share. Today I'm with my good friend Mark Fetter, who is the curator and director down at the Manistee Museum. And that's where we're at today. Right now we're in the
pharmacy portion.
Pharmacy.
Yeah, this building was originally a pharmacy. This portion of the building was, and so we keep all these artifacts here, pharmaceutical artifacts, to kind of remember what the building used to be. So.
Yeah, so I like how it's set up.
Yeah, lots of unique stuff throughout the museum, but in this portion in particular, there's lots of neat stuff here. So,
Mark, why don't you tell me about how you got into being a curator here at the museum? And is that the right term? Is that the right title?
My title is executive director because it sounds cooler, because it sounds more official. But curator, I'll take that too. I got involved in the museum about just a little over 10 years ago. I was always had an interest in history. Well, I went to graduate from Central Michigan University with a major in history and a minor in cinema studies. Now, those two things don't make you very employable by industry standards, so to speak. I love history and I love movies, so it seemed to work out pretty well for me. However, after you get a degree in that, you wonder how am I going to put that to use, if I'm going to put it to use. So after I graduated, I worked at the Manistee News Advocate doing graphic design and so on. And I was laid off from there a couple years later, and I started to, the first call I made was actually to Steve Harold, who was the director down here, and I had known Steve over the years, and he had said to me that he might need some people to come in and kind of scan some photos, and since I had some knowledge of how to do that, it'd be great if I could have some time to do that at some point in time. So a couple months later, I got laid off. First call I made was to Steve, and I said, hey, I've got plenty of time now while I try to figure out what I'm going to do. And so I ended up down here, and a while later, several months later, Steve had asked me whether or not I would like to be even more involved in the museum. And so my taking on this role as a director a couple years later kind of came because of that. So I started volunteering first, and I had a real love for it, especially being my hometown and everything, and it just kind of materialized, I guess, so to speak. And so that's how I kind of became involved at the museum.
You do a great job here.
Thank you.
I mean, a great job here.
Through the museum, I do a couple different things. I do a lot of lectures, a lot of presentations throughout the city and beyond. I've done some stuff in Ludington and in Benzie County, and a lot of stuff here in the city. Different groups, organizations want to get speakers, so I try to put something together for them. Sometimes it turns out really good, and sometimes it doesn't turn out the greatest. But it's always a lot of fun to do that. So that's one of the aspects of the job that I do, kind of outside, or when I'm not here at the museum. I'm still executive director of the museum, but I'm doing these different things, which are a lot of fun to do. I also write a weekly column for the News Advocate. I do that every Tuesday, and then every day in the News Advocate every day I do a looking back column, which are things that happened on this date in Manistee 20, 40, 60, or 80 years ago.
That's my favorite.
Those are fun to look.
That's my favorite.
Those are fun. You might have popped up in there.
We're getting close to what happened 40 years ago.
Yeah, I know. I mean, when you look at that stuff, 20 years ago, it's like, oh gosh, I remember when I was in high school and this happened. And it's like, wow, I remember when I was a kid and this happened. Or people that we knew. James and I are a year apart. He graduated in '97. I graduated in '98. So I mean, you start connecting and you go, wow. You look back and you go, wow, that's 20 years ago already. So. Yeah, so I do that, and the article that I do every week is something that Steve Harold started, and when he first started here, he started writing articles for the newspaper, and that's just something that I've continued on. Those are so much fun to research. Sometimes they work out where I have plenty of time to research them, and it'll take me sometimes days, weeks, sometimes a couple months, depending on what topic it is, because you really have to, basically put your miner's hat on, so to speak,
right,
and start digging through the newspapers to find something. And other times I'm on a deadline, so I go, wow, I'm gonna have to see what I can find real quick, and something more or less pops up. But always a lot of fun to do, and that's a tradition that we've kind of kept on over the last 40 some years here. So,
as far as the items that you have in the museum, these are donated?
Yeah, everything's donated here. There are a couple things that are on permanent loan from a couple individuals, but most of everything is donated here. The museum actually came into this building in 1961, and the first county museum was set up at the Waterworks building on First Street, which is near First Street Beach, and that started in 1955. And so in 1961, since it started in 55, they were looking for different places to get something that would be able to open year round, because there was no heat, no running water at the waterworks. So they decided to. The Historical Society found this building kind of came into their hands, and so they decided to set up shop here. So they were open year round. And this was originally called the Russell Memorial Annex, and that was the main museum for several years after this building opened. But then eventually it switched, and this became the main building, and that became the annex to the historical museum. So this is a beautiful building, and the artifacts. We still get people who donate things quite a bit. Actually, we had some donations today of some old Manistee High yearbooks, which are always neat to look through. But regardless, everything's donated here.
And that's how you get your income?
That's not how we get our income. Our income,
as far as like door donations.
Customers coming in. Well, visitors, or we.
You're just asking for a donation. You're not asking
there is an admittance fee. Yeah, there's $1 for students. That could be high school students, college students.
Right.
And then there's $3 for an adult, and then $8 for a family. And so yes, to see everything at the museum, there's about 9,000 square feet upstairs, downstairs. There is a cost for admittance. So we're funded partly through that, partly through donations. Over the years, people have graciously donated some money to the museum to keep us going. And then the city also appropriates some money for the work that we do for the city. We do a lot with the Historic District Commission, which is actually something you had to deal with when you opened up your business there. And so there's lots that we do with that. So if you come in to town and you want to buy a building in the historic district, you come see me. If you would say, hey, I want to know about the building, the history of it, who owned it, you have photos of it, so on and so forth, you come and see me. And I would provide you all of that free of charge within the district because of the appropriation that the city gives us. And sometimes that takes a couple days, sometimes it takes a couple weeks. There's been times where it takes months to compile all that information for people. So we work on that quite a bit. And so that's kind of how the museum is funded. For those primarily three things: admission, donations, and how the city is appropriated. The funds that the city appropriates.
So I know there's a couple of things you want to touch on, but I have some. For me, and I'm sure some of the people that are going to be watching this want to know what is the craziest or funniest thing that you've come across here in the museum.
Oh man,
I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm sure that
would take a lot of time, or that would probably take a while to figure out. Because there's a lot of neat stuff that you come across. It would probably I don't know, that some of the coolest stuff that I come across, stuff that I kind of freak out about, is regards to photographs. And there was probably about a year ago where in one of the deepest recesses of the basement, one of our volunteers who's been attempting to organize everything and get everything kind of situated down there came across a big stack of photos that probably hadn't seen the light of day in 30, 40 years. So I asked Steve about it, who's been here since '76, and he goes, that's where those are. Because pretty much he said that he thinks he had set them down somewhere and had forgotten about them. And they were great pictures, lots of railroad pictures and lots of pictures of River Street. I mean, just a pile of stuff. And that stuff, you can take those pictures and analyze them and get the magnifying glass out or scan them and magnify them and look at every nook and cranny of those photos. And that stuff we always freak out about. So I'll probably go there. It'll probably take me a while to figure out exactly some of the more odder, crazier things that I've found here, and there've been quite a few. But when it comes to really neat stuff like photographs, really kind of gets us freaked out a little bit. So yeah.
What's a typical night in the museum? Does it get crazy in here with some of the artifacts coming
You
to life and
know,
wanting
you
to
know
party?
when I first started here, you know, and I've been here, you know, to the wee hours of the night, whether we're setting up an exhibit or I think to myself, did I forget to turn off that light? I'm sure it happens to you too.
Yeah.
You know, you go, did I forget to do something? And well, it's, you know, 1 a.m. I better go down there because I don't know, you know. So, and it used to freak me out a little bit. I want as it would, but over the years you get accustomed to it, and I've never had any instance. You know, sometimes people come in, mainly children who come in and want to know if it's haunted or there's ghosts. I've been in here, like I said, all the wee hours of the night, and there's never been a ghost or a sighting that I've ever seen. So and it's, you would think with the way that the building is and kind of it's got its creaks and noises, but nothing. You would think that you would get freaked out about that a little bit more, but after a while you just don't. You know.
So we got what 150th anniversary.
Yeah. This 1869 is when the city of Manistee was officially incorporated, and so we knew that the museum and the board.
So for those that don't know, what does incorporated mean?
Incorporated means that the city actually became the city or became a municipality.
Gotcha.
And so that's when that happened in 1869. Prior to that, it was never really incorporated as a village. Manistee was never known as a village. It kind of skipped that part and it just became a city. And so this is when the city was really in the midst of its growth spurt after the Civil War, and they were trying to decide, you know what was the next step. And so they said, well, we need to officially become a city, and so this is what they did. And there's a lot of moving parts to that, and a lot of people that were involved. But to kind of commemorate that, the museum board and myself decided to come up with a series of events that would kind of honor or kind of honor is a good way to put it. Honor and to kind of explain more of the different aspects of the city that don't always get recognized a lot.
Okay.
And so we're putting together about 13 different events that will kind of touch on those different aspects. And the first one is February 27th. It's going to be at the Elks Club, and it's called Fun with the Founding Fathers. And so we're going to be, I'm going to be giving a presentation on how the city became incorporated, who the people were involved, who the first mayor was, who the first secretary was, who the first treasurer was, and kind of some background information about these people, as well as who comprised the first city council. And so we're going to talk about that, and we're also going to talk about the service clubs and organizations that are a part of Manistee. Once again, these organizations have done a lot for the community over the last 150 years, and they don't always get a lot of recognition. And so there's within the city, there's about 9 of them that are still active. And so I'm going to be giving part of my presentation will be about all the service organizations in Manistee in the last 150 years. Now, there's a lot.
For the 9, we like the Elks, the Masons, the Rotary, the Lions Club,
the JCs. Let's see. I've got, how many you got there?
5.
You got 5. Knights of Columbus.
Knights. Okay.
The Lakeside Club.
Okay.
I've got a list of them. Gosh, you shouldn't have
I
started.
put that
Yeah, you should have started.
We're leaving 2 out for sure.
We're leaving 2 out. They're yeah. Well, we're gonna talk about them. Yeah. But I've invited the people from those organizations to come and just say a few words about the history of and how long they've been involved with and what they do. There's also the Civic Club, which I'm including in that, even though they're in Fowler City now. It was originally the St. Joe Civic Club, you remember. But yeah, so we're gonna be doing that at the Elks Club on the 27th, and so I'm not gonna go into a lot of great detail when it comes to all the service organizations 150 years, because there were I've counted about 75 to 80 of them, and that would take me way too long, and nobody wants to hear that. Sure. But we're gonna mention them and talk about a little bit about them, and then there's gonna be a lot of fun stuff over the next year here. We're gonna The next thing we're going to do after the Fun with the Founding Fathers event at the Vogue, I'm going to be giving a presentation on the history of all the different movie theaters and vaudeville theaters that were here in Manistee, because there was about 10 to 12 of them, depending on what the definition of movie theater is. So I'm going to be talking about that, and then there's going to be a free screening of Superman the movie, with the original 1978 Christopher Reeve movie. It was officially the 40th anniversary last year. But it didn't come to the Vogue until April of 1979, so it's the 40th anniversary screening that it came to Manistee. So we're going to be showing that, and that's free,
awesome.
and that's going to be free of charge. And that's, bring the kids, bring your husband and wife. If you haven't seen the movie, or if you haven't seen it in a long time, it is an American classic. I love
I
it.
feel like it was Superman 2. My mom took me to see
Your
it.
mom took you to go see Superman
And
2?
we sat, and the first time I ever been in the Vogue Theater when they had the balconies.
Oh yeah.
Her and I sat in the balcony.
Oh wow, yeah,
I'll never forget it.
That stuff like that sticks
Never
with you.
forget it,
See, that Superman 2 is great, but yeah, the original Superman, that's gonna be at the Vogue. That's gonna be April 9th, and then we're gonna be doing a kind of a presentation on history of River Street at the end of April at the Ramsdale Inn, and then we're going to be doing a walking tour along with that of River Street.
Now, how can we find this?
You can
because
find-
I didn't realize that you did all these speaking and did all this stuff.
Yeah. With this event, you can find all the information on the website on the
Museum website?
ManisteeMuseum.org.
Okay.
Under the exhibit section, there's a place for 150 years,
Okay.
and that's you can find all the scheduled events on there. Also on ManisteeNews.com, if you type in City of Manistee 150th in their search engine. They did an article about it, so that'll be all there. And then I also, or you can go to the Facebook page, and there's Manistee Museum, all the stuff for the 150th, all the scheduled events is on there as well. And I'll be updating that regularly with announcements. So like I said, there'll be a lot going on, and it's going to be, I think, a fun year, and we're really excited down here at the museum to be a part of it all. So yeah.
Well, before we end, is there anything else you want to talk about as far as the museum or anything?
No. I think I'm good. If there's nothing else you want to question me about, So
I think this is really great.
Yeah.
We're getting some information out there.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
love coming down here.
Yeah.
You were a huge help to me when I was getting ready to open up.
You still
the
got those
store.
pictures up there?
No, I do.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
If you come down to your museum, bring some money, help donate. ManisteeMuseum.org, hit that up, like them on Facebook.
Every little bit helps, to keep plugging along. It's a fun place. It's a great place to learn about history and to do a lot of if you have genealogy, we do a lot of genealogy too. People
this is crazy.
People,
I didn't know that.
people. Surprising enough, people come in from around the world to come and do research here in Manistee. Actually, to come to Manistee, make it a point. People came from Switzerland last year to actually come here to do family research. And it amazes me because I just go, well, think about it. I mean, you're going to come all the way to Switzerland just to Manistee for a couple of days to do some work. Well, of course they're going to. People go up and they visit some of the hot spots up north of us and down south and some of the other places here. But this is their primary goal. It kind of boggles my mind. So.
Do you? Who's the name of the fellow that was like 100 feet tall that was here in
That's
Manistee?
Robert Wadlow. Yeah.
So, speaking of people coming from a long way, a podcast that I listen to and also watch on YouTube that gets like millions and millions of views.
Yeah.
For I can't remember the reason, but they were talking about like really big people.
Yeah.
And brought him up on this podcast.
Yeah.
It was a national podcast, and showed it on Wikipedia and showed Manistee.
Show Manistee on there. That gets people. I've had people over the years come and want to know information. We have photos of him. We have, some really neat photos of him being. I shouldn't say really neat because it's kind of. Of being loaded into it, and he's in his casket was very, and they're loading it with several men loading it on this big flatbed truck because he was such a big man. I mean, it's really interesting stuff, and you get people with lots of bizarre questions and unique things, and it's always fun to attempt to answer them. Sometimes we don't always answer them correctly, or I shouldn't say correctly, but sometimes we can't always answer them. But it's always fun to attempt to try to, or if you come in here and you want to know how old your house is, so we can ballpark it to a certain degree depending on where it's located, and or if you want to know about great Aunt Sally, what happened to great Aunt Sally because she passed away here, we can more than likely find information out for you. So that's always an interesting part of the job, and I always really enjoy that. So. I should have said that when you said, "Is there anything else you want to add?" So
That's all right, man.
But anyway,
Listen,
hey,
I
nice
really
talking with you
appreciate
guys.
it. Thank you
take
so
care.
much. This has been
Absolutely,
awesome.
always a lot of fun.
Cheers.
Take care.